It is absolutely 100% official. Tesla has now reduced the price of subscriptions to $99 a month. This is absolutely huge news. Obviously, I have a longstanding thesis on the go to market strategy that Tesla is going to pursue for FSD that has included them reducing the prices of FSD so they can maximize take rate and maximize revenue um, from that service. And we are already beginning to see them put this into practice. And I'm honestly surprised. I knew that V12 was going to be cool. I knew it was going to be exciting. I knew that we were going to see incredible new functionality. What I did not expect was for the system capability to get to the point that it's at already, for Tesla to be willing to offer this service at a price that is significantly lower than where they had it before. And so this is huge news for the auto industry because this is the beginning of a shift away from a model where we purchase the car, we purchase the transportation unit itself, and then we use it and we operate it. And this is a move towards a new model of transportation where we will actually subscribe to transportation as a service. And this is something that Tesla is really in the lead to be able to do. And it is not something that hardly any of the other manufacturers are going to be capable of anytime soon. This is obviously going to be a shift where people are moving in this direction now that Tesla has proven it out and is showing that it is going to be possible. And this will only become more and more obvious. Obviously, this will be a date that we look back in history as a defining moment in the shift to autonomous vehicles becoming the primary mode of transportation. There's going to be a lot of people that will contest that even moving forward for a while. They're going to say that no, this is not the future. Um, People still are going to want to own vehicles, and there's going to be 100 arguments that already exist today that people will put forward to try and say that this is not the future. But unfortunately, they are just going to be proven incorrect. This is going to be the way that things move in the future. And so I'm excited to see that we are here. And I'd love just to hang out with you and talk about, what are the implications? What do you see? We'll dive into how we actually got to this point and discuss some of those things as well. But let me know if you have any questions or comments. Put those here in the chat. We should be able to see question comments from both YouTube and from Twitter, and we can highlight some things there as well. But let's actually move to how this happened. So Yashu posted this yesterday. He said, if Tesla lowered FSD subscription prices to $99 a month, I bet it would get at least a 25% bump in take rate. And then yesterday, Elon Musk liked this comment. And so at that point in time, Yashu's thinking, okay, this is definitely something that is going to happen. And then sure enough, here, probably difficult to, let me a little bit bigger. Is that better? Cool. Okay. Um, so like I said, if Tesla lowered FSD subscription price to $99 a month, I bet it would get a 25% take rate. That's from Yashu. Elon likes it. So the fix is in. And then just today, it was only, I don't know, an hour ago or less. That's when we got the announcement from the official Tesla page that we are doing this. And so let me walk you through my thesis on why this is significant. So if we go back in time, as Tesla was developing the FSD software suite, there's a threshold, a minimum number of users that it's necessary that you have in order to develop the FSD system. But you don't want to have users who are either going to abuse the system, or you don't want to expose yourself to an unnecessary level of risk that you have more exposure to possible accidents than necessary. And so you want to basically thread the needle. You want to have enough users to where you have the data that you need and the feedback that you need to develop the system, but you don't want an extra number of users really that's above that point. And Tesla really had all of the levers under their control that they needed in order to they could either increase or decrease the number of users in the system as necessary based on what their needs and desires were at any one point in time. And so we saw that, if they needed more users, they could lower the safety. At first, we had the safety score that was in place. And even though we had lots of people who had purchased beta, they were using the safety score to continue to keep people out of actually accessing FSD beta V12, or this was even before that. This was in version 10 and 11. Um, and so they were using that as a tool to just limit that number of people. And then as the software continued to increase in functionality and capability in both comfort and in safety, then we saw them actually growing that number of beta users inside the fleet. And they just continued to do that. We saw them, lifting the restrictions and removing the need for the safety score. That was finally when we reached the point of FSD going to a full wide release. That's what Elon called it. And that signaled, hey, we are really now much more confident in the safety and the comfort of the system. We're at a point where we believe that we can put it in the hands of more of our fleet users and our owners in who have purchased FSD, but we don't want to just send it out to everyone. We still want people to have skin in the game. And so, it's still a $12,000 purchase price. It was still $200 a month if you wanted to subscribe to it. And those bars were still relatively high. They didn't just want anyone and everyone to have access to it because they didn't necessarily want people who would abuse the system to have access yet, because they didn't have confidence in the overall safety and the quality of the user experience at that point in time. And so that was where we really were up until recently. But just if you go into the future and you kind of look back and you think about, okay, at some point, FSD, if you believe this, FSD will be in a position to solve autonomy at a level 4 or above level. So that means that it can drive itself without the human actually paying attention or supervising the vehicle in most scenarios, in most cases. If we're going to get to that point, then at some point you do reach a level where the system is so good at driving that it doesn't matter how high of quality the supervision is that you're getting from the human occupants of the vehicle. And once you are in that place in the future, what is it that you want to maximize the safety of humans on the road and the usage of your vehicles? Well, you obviously want the most people possible to be using the system. And you can achieve that by lowering your prices to a break even point where people are willing to go ahead and subscribe. And what type of revenue makes the most sense in that scenario? Well, it's certainly not a purchase price, it's actually a subscription. That you want those SaaS revenues because you want to be able to adjust the pricing of your offering based on the level of functionality that you are offering to your customers. And so it looks great on paper. You've got that recurring number that Wall Street loves, but also gives you the most flexibility and the best ability to really extract from your vehicles the value that you are providing to your customers. And so that's one of the reasons it just was very clear to me that this was a direction that they were going to go. And the reason that I feel like today is such a huge announcement is because while I have personally been convinced that Tesla would reach a point where they were really flexible on pricing strategy and that becoming flexible on pricing strategy was going to be a signal that they are going to begin offering FSD to, in a very wide variety of ways, to a wide variety of customers, and that this is the beginning of Tesla being transformed into a software as a service company where the vehicles themselves are no longer just devices that we own, but that these vehicles become platforms that Tesla actually is able to use to sell us software services and to be able to generate those software as a service revenues that are going to be recurring. And this is the beginning of a re-rating of the company. Wall Street does not believe that Tesla is capable of really delivering on their robotaxi future that they have talked about so often in the past. But in this scenario, even if we don't get to full robo taxis that are level 5 that can go drive themselves around and pick up people on taxi fares and operate like its own Uber service that just has no humans in it, even if we don't reach that, just being able to take the 5 or 6 million vehicles that we have in the fleet and to be able to uh, get 30, 40, 50 extra dollars a month worth of value that's being provided to the customer on average across, the entire fleet. That adds billions of dollars of revenue to the bottom line, and then depending on the multiple that you assign to it, potentially trillions of dollars of extra market cap to the company. And that's just with the size of the fleet that we have today. As we continue to deliver more and more vehicles, that just continues to grow and grow and grow in the future. And as the only major OEM that is capable of delivering that type of service today with the fleet that already exists, this is just terrible, terrible news for anyone who is a legacy auto manufacturer like Ford, like GM, like Volkswagen, like Mercedes and BMW. Honestly, it's also scary if you're a new vehicle EV manufacturer like BYD or any of these major Chinese Xiaopeng, any of these Chinese companies that are trying to offer something that is competitive with Tesla, because while they have been working on software in the background, they really do not have a system, especially an installed base of vehicles that have the necessary computers and software sensors to be able to offer a service like this. And then once this service becomes possible, it is the obvious future that there is no going back to a single time sale of hardware from an auto market standpoint that really makes sense. This is going to be, transportation as a service will be the direction that all of the auto market moves towards and away from the existing business models that all of the other companies are married to. And so, if I was one of the major executives at GM or at Ford or BMW or Volkswagen or any of these places, I would be on the phone with Elon today asking him, how can we actually get this FSD licensing rolling? Because we would have to have a service like this that we could operate on our vehicles. And we need to get those computers and those cameras into as many vehicles as quickly as possible so that we don't forego that revenue in the future. And so that's kind of where we're at. That's why this is huge news. I'm very excited to see how this plays out. Like I said, I expected us to arrive at this place, but I didn't think it was going to be this soon. I thought we were looking at, later this year, potentially even into next year or 2026, that Tesla would signal their willingness to be flexible on pricing and that their go-to-market strategy would become clear. But they are just moving so rapidly right now with the advent of version 12 that we are just getting new updates and announcements on a regular basis. And I am incredibly excited. I think that, you know, it's going to be hilarious to look back on this point in time that so many of the fund managers, people like Gary Black or Ross Gerber or Meet Kevin are selling out of their major positions. And this is the time when, for those who are able to understand the implications of the technology that Tesla is developing in FSD and the transformation that this announcement signals for the business model of Tesla. um, I mean, this is just a terrible time to be out of the name, out of the story, out of the stock. And we'll see. I noticed that Gary has actually had very positive things to say today about this reduction. Um, Everyone is going to be watching take rate now. What is the impact that this reduction in subscription price has on take rate? Is it going to 2x? Is it going to 3x? Is it going to 4x? My expectation is that this is probably elastic, in meaning that we're going to, if since it's reducing the price by half, we're going to get more than 2 times as many subscribers that we have today. Now, that's not the same as beta users because a very large number of the beta users actually own FSD outright, and they don't actually have to pay anything in subscription fees. But we should see the subscription count rise dramatically, more than 2 times what it was in the past. But it may take us a little bit of time just because that customer education piece does take a while for Tesla to kick in. So I don't know how long it will take for people to understand that the pricing has come down. Tesla does have a lot of ability to communicate with the owners directly in the vehicle. And so hopefully they're taking full advantage of that, and everyone is being communicated with at point of sale, which is the driver's seat of your car, that this is an option that's available to them. And so, yeah, if you've got any questions, let's go ahead and throw those in the chat, and I will work on beginning to answer some of those, and then we'll highlight some comments here in just a second. Oh, and I've got uh we may be able to bring Yashu in for a moment here as well. So yeah, Mr. Mawson says no human needed on my first Tesla FSD 12.3.4 drive. So that's, a zero intervention drive. We're hearing more and more of these comments that, FSD V12 is not perfect yet. There's still a lot of people who are having interventions, or, on 12.3.3, I know that there were a number of people who were running into curbs or, hitting potholes in such a way that they were ruining rims, ruining tires. That seemed to be a more common than you would like to see occurrence. So hopefully 12.3.4 can solve that. But regardless of whether or not we can solve that, right this instant today, the rate of progress that we've been seeing on version 12 is just so insane. And I'm very confident that we'll solve those concerns very quickly. So Daniel has a great comment. He says, my only concern for robotaxi is protesters and rioters who could purposely try to stop and damage the cars. This is probably something that is very likely to happen at some point in time. This transition to a new market paradigm, which is not only destructive to the legacy auto manufacturers, but it's also destructive to the ride hail industry or the taxi industry. There is going to be some pushback that we see to this technology, and it is understandable. It really is not positive to watch, an industry and a group of people really face losing their prospects of making a living, and being forced to get creative, to re-enter the job market, and to begin looking for work in a new way. That is part of the creative destruction that happens in technological innovation and, disruptive innovation in particular. And it's a very, really uncomfortable reality, that over the long term, these technologies give humans back more of their time, and they allow us to do more of the things that we care about more. Um, but in the process, there are people that end up having to stop doing work that they were good at or that they were using in order to feed their families. And so this is just a something that we'll have to keep an eye on and continue to monitor. And this is why there's lots of discussions about things like universal basic income to see if, is there a way for us to use the proceeds that are generated from some of these businesses to help and actually provide a safety net for those people who end up getting displaced. So here's a good comment. Jason says, highest death rates on the roads are public holidays. Tesla gives FSD supervised free on public holidays. If Tesla provided that service for free on holidays, that would be an awesome data point for the fleet and their ability to reduce potential accidents. And I think that would be a great, public service that Tesla could offer. I really like that idea. Um, Michael says FSD pricing could evolve like a mobile data plan, pay as you go, and unlimited miles will get, or I think this is kilometers in Michael's case. So they'll get more sophisticated over time. And I 100% agree. I think that, pricing is a whole science and art unto itself. And I do expect Tesla to get really creative. Some people have suggested that Tesla offer a per mile rate. Others have suggested, like Yashu did, that we're just going to come down on the subscription prices. I think that more than likely we will see the outright purchase price increase from here because they don't want the users to actually be able to purchase something that in Tesla's mind is probably worth between 50 and 100 or even 150 or $200,000 over the lifetime of a vehicle. They don't want to be offering that to people for $12,000. They really need to actually be getting a higher amount of that overall value up front if you're going to buy it for the lifetime of the vehicle. But on the flip side, that you can offer services, those subscriptions, or something like an a la carte menu where say, hey, you can buy the FSD that does not have summon for this much, and then with summon package added on would be potentially more, or various ways to divide up the functionality of the system and offer pricing based on each of those pieces of functionality, and then people can purchase what it is that they want for what it is that they need and maximize the overall revenue that they take from it there. But one of the things to keep in mind is something like a Laffer curve, which I know it sounds incredibly nerdy because it is. But Art Laffer is one of the mentors of Kathy Wood, and he came up with this concept of a Laffer curve. I believe it was back in the 80s under Reagan. And the idea is that if you try to put too many taxes on the economy, that eventually you hit a point where you're actually bringing in, even though you have a larger tax rate, that you bring in less tax revenue because you're crushing the productivity of the economy itself. And that idea kind of applies also to pricing, that there's two ideal points to extract the maximum dollars worth of taxes. One of them is at a very low tax rate, and then the other one is at a much higher tax rate. And that, at this very low tax rate, you can extract a lot of tax dollars from the economy because it's a point at which the economy itself is operating very, very freely and is generating the most possible amount of money. And so you're earning a smaller percentage of a much, much larger number at this low tax rate. And then there's another tax rate above where the economy is very stifled, and but you're extracting a very large percentage of that as taxes. And the idea behind all of this is that really you want to shoot for that lower number because you want to have a thriving economy. And the same thing can be said for prices. If you will actually find that ideal place where you've got the rate at a low point that stimulates either take rate of your service, or other people to use your service as part of something that they're doing in their own business, that you can take a small percentage of a very, very, very large number. And this is something that Tesla will have an opportunity to really play with and experiment on and find how is it that they can actually provide transportation as a service at a price that really grows the overall number of miles that get traveled specifically by their electric vehicles, which then displaces the maximum number of ICE vehicle miles possible. And so this is a tool really that is going to be very, very effective in Tesla's mission to reduce the emissions that we're generating currently, to accelerate the advent of a sustainable energy future. That now, if you can put this FSD onto a car and that car becomes much more useful and ends up driving many, many more miles because it has FSD on it, then you can sell one vehicle, but potentially that one car can make up for the miles driven by two or three or four or five ICE vehicles that are already on the road. And so this is one way that we can really have the maximum impact on the mission of Tesla with the least amount of overall resources possible. And then in the process, if you can drive that many more miles with Tesla vehicles, well, your revenue that you should be able to earn as a company should be roughly proportional to that number of miles. And so very exciting future that we're looking at here. All right. Peter says, if there was more serious competition, it would be harder to protest against all of them, but it's easier to protest Tesla because you can single them out. And unfortunately, that's not good. And these are battles that must be won. And I would 100% agree with Peter here. And this is going to be one of the reasons why it becomes even more imperative for Tesla to be licensing this technology to other vehicle manufacturers, not only so that there are, more manufacturers who are using this technology, which is a positive thing, but also so that that pushback and the really the protest that will be raised against this technology can be directed at a larger number of people. And then also one of the things that you quickly begin to realize is that all of the lobbying dollars that all of those other auto manufacturers spend that Tesla does not spend, those would then begin to work on behalf of making sure that this technology is something that the government is friendly towards instead of hostile towards. And by making it kind of a win-win for these other auto manufacturers as well, then Tesla can kind of leverage and play into that strength. Michael says, still surprised that Tesla didn't wait to say 2 more months given speed of progress of FSD and still some issues to fix. Is Elon just embracing the risk? That never changes. So yeah, this is I'm like I said earlier, I'm shocked that they are already at the point where they are um, willing to share this at these prices today. That you would think that we would need to be further into the development of maybe see version 12.5 or beyond, that we would need more iterations between now and the point at which they're ready to start just expanding. But I think the system, whatever the data is that they're seeing, says that the utilization goes up. So one of the points that James Dalma made in a conversation that he and I and Farzad had on Farzad's channel a couple weeks ago is that there's two pieces of important data to kind of keep track of, and we really only have very limited visibility on either. One of them we have limited visibility, and the other one we have no visibility. And so that's one is take rate of FSD subscriptions or purchases, and then the other one is actually utilization of full self driving. And so a lot of people are focused on take rate, which is a good metric to be focused on because it does translate directly into revenue. But almost more important than that is the leading indicator of utilization. So, what James means by utilization is if you own a Tesla and you have either subscribed to FSD or you have purchased FSD, what percent of the miles that you drive are driven on FSD, and what percent of the miles are you just taking over driving for yourself? And anecdotally, what I've heard from a number of people is that in version 10 and version 11, that number was actually fairly low. That there were very few people that were willing to put up with the amount of effort that it took to drive FSD and supervise it as closely as it needed to be supervised uh, in order to use it most of their miles. Most of the time, they're just like, this thing isn't really where it needs to be yet. I'm just going to turn it off. And, I'll only turn it on every now and then, either when I feel like I have the ability to provide that supervision or when I'm driving in a situation where I know the system is actually really high quality and can handle it without me being super involved. And so, that's like 10, 20, 30% maximum of the total number of miles that they drive. They're choosing to drive on FSD instead of driving themselves. And then also anecdotally, what we've heard with version 12, especially 12.3.3 and above, is that more people are spending a lot more of their miles on FSD. And so, potentially above 50, 60, 70%. When I was speaking about this with Jeff Lutz earlier this morning on the Tesla Beat podcast episode that we had, he was saying that he's driving now over 70% of his miles are on FSD, whereas before it was, somewhere around 20% potentially. And so that's a really good indicator that the quality of the user experience that Tesla is providing now to their customers is getting to the point where it is ready to actually be rolled out to more customers. And then obviously, the more customers that are using FSD, the faster we generate those extra miles that Tesla gets to add to that, exciting chart that looks like it's going vertical of the number of miles that are driven on FSD. We just passed a billion now that we implemented the free trial. And now that we have implemented the free trial and reduced the subscription price to $100 a month, then this could really go crazy. Moving forward, we could reach 10 billion miles in less time than it took us. We could go from 1 billion to 10 billion in less time than it took us to go from 0 billions to 1 billion. And that means that we're discovering all of those last corner cases, all of those last edge cases that are out there in the real world. That's, data that's really hard to simulate. We're discovering those much more quickly. We're able to send those back to the training computer and update the system so that it just gets better and better, faster and faster. We're getting more miles, and then obviously we're earning a lot more money. And all of that, FSD revenue can be, I believe, recognized immediately from subscriptions and can flow through to the bottom line. And so I would expect sometime in the next 2 quarters for us to see significant lift to revenues that's coming directly from the pricing action that we're taking today. And once Wall Street starts to see that line item in the profit and loss statement really starting to grow, then that is a point in time which, not financial advice. In the words of Tom Nash, I could be wrong. This could be inaccurate. This could be the ramblings of a madman. But if the number go up on the P&L, specifically from a software service that is being sold to customers in a way that no other automaker has ever been able to provide in the past, I don't understand how that does not turn into a complete re-rating of Tesla as a company, what their business model is, should put to rest for once and forever the idea that Tesla is just an auto manufacturer like other auto manufacturers. And the market cap and the valuation of Tesla does say that it is not just a car company, that it is a technology company, albeit one that maybe doesn't have as exciting of a future in the eyes of Wall Street today as it had 2 years ago. But this should be one of those inflection moments where we really start to get more excited about the possibility of Tesla to earn outsized revenues in the future. All right. Yep. Yes, we are absolutely in the phase of accelerated learning right now. The amount of data that we're pulling in and just the progress, not being compute constrained, is huge for our ability to just continue to learn and to improve the system faster and faster and faster. So Commander Sprocket says this is the Tesla collecting their six, let's see, is that thousands, millions, billions? Yeah, 6 billions of miles of data before August. Tesla's going to be ready to roll out. Yeah, okay. So he's saying that he thinks that we could be maybe at the current rate that we're on, that we can collect 6 billion extra miles between now and the 8.8 Robo Taxi reveal, and that subscription pricing will go away after August. That's an interesting idea. I If robotaxi services are ready to be rolled out right after the reveal in August, there is a potential for that. And, that just catapults earnings potential of Tesla into a completely different stratosphere. I am not going to place my expectations in that happening just yet. I think that, this does make robotaxi seem like a much, much more viable future. But with that said, I think that, Tesla can become a cash printing machine, even just on the strength of a much larger take rate of FSD at that $99 price point. And so until we see concrete evidence from Tesla, personally, I am not going to start pricing in a whole bunch of extra for a full-on robo-taxi future at this point in time. I think that's getting out ahead of our skis a little bit further than I'm comfortable with. All right. So we have Raymond McLaughlin says, well, I have been on 12.3 for 2 weeks with an upgrade to 12.3.3. My wife and I are using FSD now 99% of the time. And Raymond just went ahead and subscribed. So as soon as his free month trial is over, he will now have FSD for that $99 a month. And I think we're going to be seeing this a lot. I've got a poll up, and actually, maybe that would be a good thing to go check on. My question was, with this new pricing strategy in place, if you own a Tesla, are you subscribing to FSD at $99 a month? So options are yes, but I was already subscribed at the $200 a month rate. We've got 6.1% of respondents saying that. Another 37.4% of the 115 votes said yes, and $99 is my first subscription. So people are subscribing to FSD for the first time. Almost 40% of people answering this poll, probably roughly 50 people total in this 118 person sample size, are subscribing to FSD for the very first time. And then obviously this is something that is only still available here in the United States and potentially Canada. I'm not entirely sure if Canada is getting this $99 subscription option already, or if that's something that's going to be lagging behind. If you know the answer to that question, I would love for you to drop us some information here in the chat so that we can see, get some insight on that one. But then coming back to the poll, no, I already own FSD. So that's another 36.4%. So these are people that purchased it outright. So they already have it and they don't need to buy it and they don't need to subscribe to it because, yeah, they own it. And then only 20% say no, that FSD is too expensive at $99 a month. And so that's, obviously not a very scientific poll. Among my followers, this is not something that I would expect this to generalize to everyone. So, oh, and looks like Yashu, are you ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to come on screen. Cool. Awesome. Um, so
How's it
yeah,
going?
uh, let's give you I really appreciate you being able to join us today. I've just been talking with the audience about the significance of this move in my view, but as one of the people who at least on the public facing side instigated this whole shenanigans, I wanted to get your response. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me on. I can't stay for long, but I thought I'd pop in here real quick. Um, I'm really excited. Like I tweeted out, I don't know what, I was spur of the moment. I was finished a drive on version 12 and I was like, this is so good. I just wish more people would be interested in trying this if they had a Tesla. Because I was talking around with some friends who have Teslas and they're like, "Are you really going to pay 200 and 60 bucks or whatever a month it's going to end up being in Canadian dollars?" And I was like, "Yeah, I would, but like I get why I would because I have a channel, I could post content. The average person isn't as average person is way more skittish than I am trying this stuff." And so I was like, man, that kind of sucks. Like after this trial, the hype might go away. So I kind of just tweeted and I said, like, if this was 99 bucks a month, like, man, like I bet you I could probably convince half of my friends to actually subscribe to this to have Teslas. And so I just tweeted it out. And then in the evening, I'm just going about my evening routine or whatever. And I get a bunch of notifications saying that Elon liked my tweet. And I was like, that's interesting. That's a big signal for us, right? Because he's not going to go around liking something so specific unless it's already in the works. And then he liked Tori Tesla's tweet, like I'm sure you've talked about. But anyways, I think this is huge. Number one, of course, data collection is everyone talks about that. Like, oh well, the FSD FSD data collection. I think there's portions of that, but I think what this means is the FSD and Autopilot AI team is probably liking so much of the data that they're getting in with FSD being on trial right now, and they're probably begging. They probably had been begging Elon for a while, like, can we just do whatever we can to make sure a lot of these people stick on, so we can continue to refine the system. Even faster than what we're expected to be, because I bet you there's a lot of learnings that they've had and a lot of breakthroughs that they probably had in the last month here or last 2 weeks really that with everyone on the trial that they're like, wow, if we kept this going for another 2 or 3 months longer and we got way more disengagement data and a lot more FSD miles driven. Elon talks about 6 billion. That they're probably like, oh man, by the robo taxi event, like this could be a massive game changer in terms of their rollout plan.
So, yeah, do you view this as a just a data move and that eventually, as soon as they get the data that they need, that they'll go back up in prices? Or is this kind of a permanent signal in the shift that they have in just their like go to market strategy for FSD as a service in your mind?
I think it might be both, to be honest, because Elon tweeted out and he quote tweeted, he said, supervised FSD um, going out at 99 bucks a month, subscribe now. And I noted, like, notice how he specifically says supervised. He could have just said FSD. I think this is the consumer plan moving forward. They've probably already sketched out what a enterprise robo taxi fleet plan might look like. I think this is the consumer version of that at 99 bucks a month. And so I think first of all, for EPS, quite easy, right? At 99 bucks a month, there's what 2.5 million cars in North America. I did the math and it's about 23 cents EPS at a 25% take rate. So 23% or 23-cent EPS. Hopefully that's what I said. So if like I checked Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas's EPS estimates, he's on the lower end, but he's at $1.20, right, for the entire fiscal year 2024. So we're talking like 20% of what EPS estimates are currently just additive on top of this, but also the multiple that 23 cents EPS is going to get in the market is a lot higher than the multiple your auto EPS is going to get, because the 23 cents is cumulative. Every new car, every four cars you roll off the line, one of them is now paying for this in theory with a 25% take rate. So every four new cars, one more is subscribed to this. That's 1,200 bucks a year. You're essentially increasing your ASP I mean, really, I mean, you're essentially increasing your net income per car, but really, like your revenue is going up, and it's not just ASP by 1,200, it's ASP of 1,200 multiplied by how many years you're subscribed to it as well. So
Yep.
it's really additive, right? Um, so that's why you'd get such a big multiple on that EPS. So, to answer your question, I think it's a data play for sure, but I think Tesla is itching to get some bottom line revenue in, and I think yearly revenue is about $750 billion using those assumptions. Oh, sorry, $750 million, so three-quarters of a billion. And that's nothing to sneeze at in a year where Tesla could really scrounge around and try to pull every dollar that they can out.
Especially, if it's structurally created in such a way that is durable into the future and is expected to grow with the size of the fleet. Yeah, I mean, my view for a long time has been that once that basically, yeah, there's basically going to be two go to market strategies. One of them is going to be for commercial. So there's going to be, a licensing deal made to other OEMs. They will potentially sell commercial vehicles that, whoever the fleet operator is of those vehicles, there's some sort of revenue share back to Tesla, or, maybe they are just buying that up front, but like that's going to kind of be its own bucket. So I guess that's really three buckets. There's, one for licensing the consumer technology to other auto manufacturers. Then there is sale of the platform and potentially the software to fleet operators. But then, like you said, there's the consumer bucket of we've already got these 5 million, and growing close to probably 6 million at sometime in the near future vehicles that have hardware 3 capable, and that there's a very large amount of earning potential that is in those vehicles that, you don't know if those are going to go onto the robotaxi network or not. A lot of those people probably are not going to want to do that. And so you want to have an ability to make revenue off of those vehicles that don't get added to the robotaxi fleet. And that's even, the robotaxi fleet is still even off in the future. And so why don't we, if we've got the system today that works as supervised FSD and it's super valuable, like why don't we go ahead and earn, as long as we're not adding extra layers of risk, because the system's not safe enough. Like as long as the system is safe and we're not creating accidents that really hurt the FSD product from a brand standpoint in the national and international stage, then there's no reason not to maximize the usage of that system on the roads, because it means, less ice miles driven, it means more cash in Tesla's pockets. And so, I really think that um this is the data play is definitely part of it, but I think that this is a strategy that Tesla is employing that is a permanent shift in their go-to-market strategy for the consumer segment moving forward, that is designed to maximize the take rate, maximize the usage of FSD, and
Hmm.
then in turn, maximize the amount of revenue that Tesla's able to generate off those vehicles, and that huge asset that is sitting out there on the roads, that is this this fleet of vehicles that is not only a data search engine, but it's also an applied artificial intelligence in the real world uh, platform that they're able to earn revenue off of.
Yeah. And one thing I'll leave you off with, because I have to sign off, is here's a really cool part of this. This is the early innings of Tesla's service-based revenue, right?
Yep.
And I see a comment even in here talking about it. So beat me to the punch. But Tesla insurance, right? I've long believed that if Tesla had ever hits a real big demand issue, what they can do is quite simply go, look, you're paying, like, I'll talk about my scenario. I'm paying $250 a month for insurance here in BC, right? If Tesla can come out with a competitive product that says if you enable supervised FSD for 50% or more of your rides, you're going to get a discounted rate at $75 per month, like something that makes sense, right? Because they know what their accident rate might be for their supervised FSD. Now, if they bundle it up and they say, look, instead of paying $250 a month, Yash, why don't you subscribe to FSD and get insurance for $200 a month or $150 a month when you buy a Tesla? And so if you're in the market for a car, you're already still going to pay $250 a month for your insurance, but now you can go, wait, if I buy a Tesla, I will be cutting $100 per month off of my insurance cost by buying a Tesla and enrolling in this. So you kind of have this inbuilt demand generation program where if you're in the market for a new car, why would you not consider a Tesla? Because you would instantly cut 50%, 25%, whatever it is, off of your insurance costs that most people just think is, it's a fixed cost. It is what it is. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you buy a Rolls Royce, you might be paying a lot more. But for the most part, your risk profile is going to determine your insurance. Now Tesla can go in some markets, screw that. We can give you insurance and FSD, and you promise to enable it for 50% of the time. We're going to give you a massive haircut off that insurance. And so now that car that's 40,000, Model 3, now, if you run the math of holding a car at $100 a month, let's say $1,200 worth of savings a year for 10 years, it's $12,000 off the price of the car. Really, if you think about it that way, and then you also add in going EV and switching on the maintenance costs, like we're in the early stages of Tesla's as a service-based revenue, and really the potential that kind of lives there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that is my exact thesis is that this is the beginning of the transformation of Tesla into a software as a service business, whether that software is FSD, whether that is in some ways, attached to their insurance. And I just wish that they had better penetration of insurance, that they
Yeah,
had the entire United States, not just a couple select states, that they had all of Canada. Unfortunately, it does seem like the process of getting approval in all of those extra jurisdictions is something that's going to take a while. So
yeah,
that's not an opportunity that they can really take advantage of at the fleet level yet, but obviously will over time.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, right on. Thanks so much for inviting me on last minute, and I appreciate you listening to me ramble.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate you joining me today. And thank you for uh, giving that little nudge. Obviously, like you said, this is probably something that was already in the works,
Yeah.
but it's cool to get to be part of the history that is
Yeah.
being made today.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to look at it, Hans. All right, man. Appreciate you. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one. Cool. So, like I said, really appreciate Yashu. And I think that might be just a good place to wind down for today. I think, obviously, if you've been here since the stream began, you understand my position and why I believe this is such a huge deal. Uh, and there's so many benefits that we have moving forward. I am as excited today. I've talked about this I think on other channels. I think that I am more excited about the 10-year future of Tesla as an investment moving forward, given what we are seeing right now with full self driving, just the general advancement that we are seeing in the artificial intelligence realm that AI or that Tesla seems to be, keeping up with at a very high level. That those things are huge. And then between FSD and bots, like Tesla has two of the best real world value added applications of artificial intelligence in physical space. And obviously Elon has the vision to see those opportunities and to be building forward for those. And so to see FSD already now at the point where we're going to begin to see revenue flow through to the bottom line from this incredible vision that Elon has had for so many years. I mean, putting hardware 3 in vehicles that was Tesla's own design from the ground up system, which means they were designing hardware 3, probably back in 2016 roughly might be the timeline of when they made the decision to, hey, we're going to get away from Mobileye, we're going to build our own thing, and this is going to be a huge uh, capital investment for Tesla as a company that we expect to pay huge dividends in the long run for the company. Now, 8 years later, seeing them arrive at a point where that is actually beginning to come true, and at a very small level today, but will just actually grow compounded at huge rates moving forward is incredibly exciting. I think this is going to be a decade of insane growth really across many different technology companies. And Tesla's going to be probably right there with the upper level of the pack on companies that get to benefit from this because they have been planning for this future for a long time and really putting themselves in a position to win and succeed today. So Awesome, um, just memorable day in the history of Tesla as a company, and excited to see how all of this unfolds moving forward with the rest of you, and really appreciate all of the people who stopped by and spent some time with us here on YouTube, over on X, and all of the comments and the support. So hope that y'all have a wonderful evening, and I will catch you on the flip side.